friends! So it's Thanksgiving week, and I promised that I would make a yeast roll video so that anybody who wants to try their hand this year can. No time like 2020 to give it a try. So I'm going to show you guys how to make what I think are the easiest yeast rolls, best chance for success. There are plenty of fancier ways you could do them, but this is going to be a really easy, tried and true way that you guys can have some success. So don't be afraid. Let's give it a try. I'm going to start with, my favorite bread flour is King Arthur, and so that's what I'm going to start with. You can use any kind of bread flour you want, but this is my favorite. And I'm going to do 5 cups measured into my big mixing bowl here. I'm just going to spoon it into my measuring cup. Okay, and level it off the top, not worrying about getting it on the counter. That's 1. I always, when I'm measuring something out, I always count out loud where I am so that I don't lose count. I can keep track of the last number I heard myself say out loud. I know that's a little, I don't know, but it's how I do it. 2. Okay, here we go. 5. Got 5 cups of bread flour. Okay, now I'm going to add, I've got Himalayan pink salt. You can use any kind of salt that you have on hand. And I'm going to add 2.5 teaspoons of salt. 1, 2. I'm not real careful about this, so that looks like about half to me. And 4 tablespoons of sugar. Yet again, I am not careful really about my measuring of salt and sugar. 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's all I've got so far. So I know that working with yeast is a big hurdle for a lot of people. It seems scary, it seems like a big unknown, but I'm gonna just show you that this is actually really easy to do. It seems scary, Mama didn't want to do it, whatever, but it's not hard at all. So while I'm working on this other stuff, I'm just going to measure out 2 teaspoons of my Fleischmann's active dry yeast here. Okay, got 2 teaspoons. Okay, and I'm going to add a teaspoon of sugar to that. Okay. Now, to proof the yeast, I've got 1 1/3 cup water here. And to that, I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of milk. I use whole milk. That's what we like to keep on hand. So, whatever you have will be fine. So that's a 1/3 cup water with a 1/2 cup milk added in. And I'm going to microwave this for somewhere between a minute and a half, depending upon how cold your water and everything is, to get it good and warm, but not hot and boiling. I just want it just slightly warmer than what I want to put my finger in to test it, but not too hot, okay? And I think about a minute will do it because I didn't use cold water, so. Pet peeve, I don't like that final beep that the microwave does. It really annoys me. Alright, I've got clean hands, and that's nice and warm. You might need 30 more seconds, but alright, so I'm going to pour a 1/2 cup of this into my measuring cup with the yeast and sugar. The reason I use these measuring cups is just because it makes it really easy to transition and see where my 1/2 cup is. It doesn't have to be exact. Just close enough. Okay, pour that in there. And I'm going to stir it together to mix this in. Alright, once it looks good and mixed, which it does, all mixed together, I'm going to set that aside for 10 minutes to proof the yeast. And if you have made it this far, looks like I need to mix it just a pinch more. If you have made it this far, then you have officially gotten over the hump in cooking with yeast because that was the hardest part of the whole thing. You're going to let it sit there for 10 minutes, and during that time, it's going to double in size. That's proofing the yeast. So you put it in at about a half cup. In 10 minutes, it should be about a whole cup or slightly more than that. And that's how you're going to know it's good to go. So while that's going, I'm going to come back over here to my flour, sugar, and salt. If you're coming in late, it was 5 cups of bread flour, 2.5 teaspoons of salt, 4 tablespoons of sugar. Okay, and now I'm going to add in 4 tablespoons of butter. Remember, butter's marked out on the paper. See? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to cut that. All right, and I'm going to just throw that in there. It's just softened. Interesting thing with this, unlike the biscuits, if you have forgotten to soften your butter or you're trying to go a little fast, you can melt the butter. The butter is just to give it a nice flavor, but you don't have to have cold butter for this. So soften it, melt it, whatever you need to do to get it mixed in. And I'm just going to kind of work it in there. Actually not trying to get a specific texture at this point. I'm just trying to get the butter, flour, and sugar all combined. So this is not an exact science. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just mix it together. So now we're just going to wait. Looks like we've got just over 7 minutes left on that yeast. I'm just going to let this sit here while I wait. And then when that yeast has doubled in size, I'll come back for it. All right, and that was our 10 minutes. So if your yeast looks like that, doubled or more in size, then congratulations, you have just made it over the hump. You have worked with yeast. Now we're going to take this and our leftover milk and water. We're going to pour it into the bowl. This is just how I do it. You can just dump it in there. I pour the yeast in, and then I use this to kind of clean my cup. Okay, just pour it both in there. You're done with these. And mix it together. I always keep a dish of flour for dipping, flouring, all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to get my surface covered really good. I'm going to do my hands really well in between fingers. Don't want a big mess of dough. Okay? Cast some of this to the side so I've got a nice surface here. And I'm going to spoon this out. Okay, get all this that was stuck in there. This is called the shaggy mass stage, and you can see why, because it looks like a big shaggy mass. Kind of got that shaggy effect to it. Alright. This knife is my friend. I use it for all sorts of things, and I'm going to use it because I didn't flour my wooden. Alright. So here we go. Now we're going to knead the dough. Just like we did with the biscuits before, really the only important thing that you need to know to work with this is that you're going to use the heel of your hand and your wrist. You're not going to put your fingers in. If you put your fingers in it, you're going to have just a mess all over your hands. And so you just want to work with this part of your hands. Every time it gets a little sticky, back into your flour. Okay? So I'm just going to knead this all around, keeping in mind that I had some butter that wasn't mixed in real well. So this gets that all worked in. And And what we're doing in kneading this is activating gluten, which gives it that yummy, chewy texture that everybody loves in bread. Okay, so I'm just kind of gonna work with it. Now, some folks say that I need the mess out of my dough, but this is my favorite part, so I really like to do this. And so it's not a chore to me. Okay, just keep your hands floured, keep your surface floured. It'll be kind of sticky, so if you look at the counter here, it kind of cleans up after itself. It leaves little bits, and then you can put it right back over it, and it cleans those up for you. If it starts really sticking, you just put more flour there. Okay, so I just have a personal thing. I go for about 6 to 7 minutes. There is no law that says you have to do that, but that is just my personal, that's what I do. I use this for grounding, so I focus on the movements of my hands, and it's like my little mental health workout.
Making kind of a rhythm. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just habit. That's how I do it. However you need it is fine. Your goal is just to work the dough. So I'm showing you that you could do all different ways. Some people punch it like this. This is how your grandma might have done it. Okay, that's fine if you like to do that. You want to keep your hands nice and floured. You're never putting your fingers in. Okay, but some people will punch it like that. If you're angry, get it out in there. Okay, some people want to really smack at it or whatever, that's fine. You can do that. Some people like to kind of, almost like you're giving it a massage. You can do that. That's fine too. I use the heels of my hands in my rhythm. Punch, punch, pull, punch, punch, pull, punch, punch, pull, punch, punch, pull. That's kind of how I do it. And I'm turning it in a circle. And then see how it's starting to look like a big lump here? It was a shaggy mass, but now it's like a ball. I'm just kind of playing with it. All right, whenever my arms are somewhat tired of doing that, and I feel like I've got a nice, good little lump here, do a little finger test. Does it want to kind of bounce back when you do that? It does. So I should be able to pick it up and not have it going everywhere, not have little pieces, anything like that. It's a nice little lump. So I'm going to throw it back into my bowl. And that is the end of stage 1. All I have to do now is cover it up and set it aside and let it rise. It's going to take about an hour to an hour and a half for this to rise, and I'm looking for it to pretty much fill my bowl, pretty much be to the top here. I want, you know, double, triple in size. I'm not going to let it over rise and look like it's blooming out of the bowl, but I want to just leave it there until it's filled my bowl up. If you find yourself short on time, you can speed it up in the winter if you have an area with, say, a floor vent that is good and clean, and you cover this well with a plastic wrap first and put that on it so that you can keep everything sanitary. You could set it right around a floor vent and get it warmer, and that would speed you up a teeny in the winter. In the summer, the front porch is a good place to do that. But what you do not want to do is put it, you don't want to heat it up on the stove or anything like that. That's not a shortcut you can do. That'll cook the bottom. So just leave it alone for about an hour to an hour and a half, and we'll meet back together and we'll finish them up. Okay, so we're back. It's been about 2 hours because it's a cold day, not freezing, but I mean it's chilly. So anyway, it's taken about 2 hours for this dough to rise and fill up the bowl. There it is. And so now I'm going to get it out of here, and we're gonna form it into little balls and make yeast rolls. All right, so I'm gonna take some of my flour from my little bowl here. Flour up pan's really good. Okay, and out we come. Okay, just turn the dough out. And I don't waste any of this good stuff because it only takes about 1 inch of it to make a roll, so we don't want to waste any of it. Okay, so now I've got my lump straight out of the bowl. I'm going to fold it in a third, and then the next third over, and then do it the other way. So I folded it all together and have a nice pretty lump. That doesn't have to be exact, but that's the general idea of what I'm going to do. Okay, now I've got a bread knife. I'm going to get it floured up. Cut this in half. Now the reason I'm doing that is because it's going to make it easier to work with. Also, if you did not want to make yeast rolls, if at this point you feel like you've done all the working with it you want to, half of this lump will fit in one bread pan. So you could press this down into a buttered bread pan and make a loaf of bread with half of it. Okay? So you could have 2 loaves of bread, you could have a loaf of bread and some yeast rolls, or you could have all yeast rolls or whatever you want. So now I'm just going to pull off pieces, keep my hands floured really well, and I've buttered. I'm going to use round pans, but you can use a rectangle, some squares, whatever you've got, disposable pans, doesn't matter. I'm just going to form these into little balls and set them in my pan. Okay, so there's nothing exact to it at this point. Just gonna get little pieces, trying to keep them all about the same size. I reflour my hands each time because it is a little sticky and you don't want it everywhere. See, I'm pushing it up and kind of ballooning it out and pinching the bottom. Makes a little roll. Just put it on there. And if you've gotten this far, you have officially made a yeast dough. At this point, you could make a whole lot of things out of this dough, and you have conquered your fear of working with yeast and being afraid that you won't know what to do with it, because you just proved that you do. It's not half as scary as everyone thinks it is. I thought it was going to be scary too a long time ago, and now it's kind of second nature, so you'll get the hang of it. Should also add that my cameraman has changed. Mark had to run an errand at the exact time that this was ready to go, and so Gabriel is my new cameraman. Isn't he doing a good job? Okay, and you can do however many in a pan you want. So whatever look you want. If you want tiny little rolls, little petite ones, then you can do just little ones and cram a whole bunch into the pan. And that is perfectly fine to do. Or if you want really big rolls, you can just form them bigger and put less in the pan. And what you're going to do after you get these in here, okay, so that's as many as I'm going to put in this pan. And now, you see they're not perfect, and that's fine. All I do is just let those sit there and rise until they've all kind of moved together, gotten big, and look like yeast rolls. Once that's happened, I'll put them in the oven and cook them up And that's all there is to it. It's really not that hard. It just is kind of a mental hurdle to get over. So I'm going to do this pan here. So this is what they look like. See, I didn't get them all perfect. That's fine. They're going to sort themselves out while they rise. I'm just going to let them sit here until that happens. I don't need to cover them. You can. You don't need to. But there you go. While these are rising, I'm just going to mix up some honey butter. I know that you can all figure out how to do that, but I thought I would just show you anyway. So put a little bit of butter in there. I'm not going to measure anything exactly. I use local honey because I really like it. I'm not going to, like I have no idea how much of anything I put. I just go on how it looks. I'll go on a little more honey than that. And once these come out of the oven, I'll brush the tops with honey butter. So look, all you have to do there. Can you see that? I'm just going to mix the butter and the honey together. There's nothing to it at all. If you want to do it really fast, you can use a hand mixer, but I guess you guys are learning my ways by now, and I like to do everything by hand. You can put it into a pretty little dish and put it back in the fridge to firm up a little bit so you can serve it at the table to go with these yeast rolls. But for now, I'm going to leave it real softly mixed like that because I'm going to use my brush here when they come out of the oven and brush the tops while they're nice and hot, and they'll sizzle on there and make a delicious honey butter glaze on top of these yummy yeast rolls. Alright, I'll check back in a few. Okay, so my oven is preheated to 350. These have risen nicely. Okay, and so I'm ready to put my yeast rolls in. I'll let you see what each pan looks like. See, this pan particularly imperfect, and I'm completely fine with that. They're going to taste delicious. They're going to be good. The point is that they're easy. All right, and this is what I did with the leftover. I just added another pan. So I'm going to stick this into the oven at 350. Because everybody's oven is different, you need to start checking these just with the oven light, nothing more than that. At about 12 minutes, it's probably going to take somewhere between 14 to 16 minutes, but turn your light on and see what they look like at 12 minutes so that you can get them the amount of doneness you want, whether you like them real light on top or if you like them a nice golden brown. I go for a nice medium golden color, but that's all personal preference. So there you have it. I'm going to leave them for 12 minutes. I'm going to start peeking. I think it will take about 14 to 16 minutes for most people. It'll take about 15 minutes in my oven, but I just want to be sure that you check on them and don't leave them in too long since you went to all this hard work. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, so it's been about 16 minutes, and that's what my oven normally takes. These are ready to come out. So, pull those out. These that I had in the front, I'm going to stick back in. Set the timer anytime. Have anything in there because, oh boy, it's dead to me. Alright, and these are ready to go. So now, while they're still getting hot, I'm going to come get my honey butter. Oh, look how yummy. I'm going to brush the top. Come over here, G, so they can see how yummy these look. Look at that. I'm just going to brush the tops of these. Oh my word, it's going to be so good. I've got hungry children that have been smelling these and they can hardly wait until I say go. So that's all there is to it, guys. If you have stuck with me for this whole saga, then you have learned how to make yeast rolls. And if you make these, I would love to see a video of, or rather a picture of how it went, how they turned out, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the whole process. I tried to give you what I feel like is the easiest recipe that you can do for making yeast rolls. Very simple. There are a lot of things that once you're more comfortable working with just the idea of working with yeast that we can do to fancy these up, to give them a slightly different flavor and all that. But this is as easy as I think you're gonna get. And so I would love to see a picture if any of you guys try. These are great, fresh out of the oven. You can easily cover them at room temperature overnight and stick them back in the oven for a couple minutes the next day if you want to make them ahead of time and not be pressed for time. They also do really well to make sandwiches with your leftovers. So here you have it. These are easy peasy yeast rolls. There they are. They're going to be absolutely delicious. They've been brushed with honey butter and they are going to be so delicious. All right, good luck, you guys. I hope that everybody's able to give this a try. I hope it works out and it's been fun visiting with you today. All right, bye y'all.